Being good at your job works until one day it doesn't. And if you don't realize when that happens, you'll keep doing everything right and still not move forward. That's where most people get stuck. You're delivering, you're reliable, people trust your work, but somehow nothing changes. And that's what makes it confusing, because nothing feels wrong. But at some point, the rules change, and most people don't realize it. They keep playing the same game, hoping it will finally pay off. So what actually separates the people who move up from the ones who stay stuck? Let's break it down. Before we get into it, let me ask you something uncomfortable. If you've been passed over for a promotion, overlooked for a raise, or feel like your effort isn't being recognized, have you really done everything within your control? Because most people haven't. Not because they're lazy, but because no one ever told them what actually matters. Let's change that. There are reasons why people get stuck, and they usually fall into two buckets. The first, things outside your control. Promotions get frozen. Someone else gets the high visibility project. Your manager takes credit, or simply doesn't develop people. Sometime the system failed you. And that's frustrating because there's nothing you could have done differently. And when that happens, it's easy to stop looking at what is within your control. But here's the uncomfortable bucket, the things within your control that most people never do. Your manager's manager doesn't know who you are. You've never clearly said you want to move up. You assumed being good would speak for itself. You never asked what exceeding actually means. You never had the direct conversation about where you stand. These aren't small things. These are the decisions shaping your career, while you're busy working hard and hoping someone notices. Most people don't lose because they didn't work hard. They lose because they missed the moves that actually matter. So let's talk about those moves. Let's start with something simple, but often overlooked. Are you even working on the right things? People spend weeks on something, only to find out it wasn't what was needed. Not wrong, just not aligned with what mattered. Let me give you a simple example. Your manager asks for a report. You assume it's important, so you prioritize it over everything else. You spend a week making it thorough, detailed, polished, complete. But what they actually needed was a quick summary for a meeting the next day. And this happens more often than people think. Not because people are careless, but because no one clarified what mattered most. So now it's not just misaligned. You also spent a week on something that wasn't the immediate priority. Your work isn't wrong. It just didn't match what was needed at that moment. And in most workplaces, timing matters just as much as quality. So before you go deep, align. What does done look like? What matters most here? Then check in early. Just the direction, not the final work. Because fixing direction early is always cheaper than fixing it at the end. The people who move forward aren't just working hard. They're working on what actually matters. Here's what most people misunderstand about performance. Exceeding expectations isn't about working harder. It's about solving problems your manager doesn't have to think about. Meeting expectations means you did your job. Exceeding means you made things easier for everyone above you. That's a completely different level. It's not just about doing more. It's about thinking one level higher, anticipating what's needed before you're asked. And if you don't see that, you'll think you're doing great when you're just doing what's expected. And that's why it feels confusing. Because from your perspective, you're putting in more effort than ever. But from the company's perspective, you're just meeting the bar. And here's the tricky part. The definition of good isn't fixed. It changes depending on your level, your team, and even the year. So ask early, what does good look like this year? What does great actually mean here? Because the target moves, and if you don't see it, you're aiming at last year's standard. And that's a game. You can't win. Here's another move most people avoid. If you want to move forward, say it out loud. If you've never said you want more, you're silently telling your manager, you're fine where you are. And most people don't realize this is happening. They think staying quiet is being humble, but it's actually making them invisible. Managers don't guess ambition. They prioritize the people who make it clear. Because if you don't say it, it doesn't get considered. And if all you're doing is meeting expectations, you're doing your job, not positioning yourself for more. Progression is planned, months in advance, not assumed. Conversations like this happen earlier than you think. The people who move forward don't wait to be noticed. They make their direction clear early. They tell their manager where they want to go and start working towards it. Not perfectly, but intentionally. Being good at your job isn't the problem. It's where everyone starts. But at some point, the rules change. Being good is no longer enough. And if you don't see that, you'll keep doing the right things and still feel stuck. Because after a certain point, it's not about working harder. It's about working on the right things, being seen in the right way, and making the right moves early enough. So do what you can, and more importantly, do what actually matters.